This is Forward Progress, a part of the Hammer Betting Network. I am Rob Pizzola, joined as always by my co-host Clive Bixby. We are live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, and we're also live on Twitter at Forward NFL. Clive, pretty interesting week this week, I would say. Overall, how did the card treat you?
It's still going a little bit, but for the most part, it was fine. Got a little bit of money on New England after the two news came out, and other than that, lost the Colts Giants under, which was, it's not like it was close, but the game just played out so poorly for an under. And then, got a little bit of teaser stuff here and there, had some Seahawks. So overall, good week. How about you?
Pretty bad week overall. So I had a great December, which was nice. We move on into January 2023. Not the greatest start for me. Big one for me was the 49ers, but pre-Stidham. So just unfortunate where, get a very good line and doesn't work out type of situation, and very easily could have worked out as well. So that was, just unfortunate, but also made some bad plays in general. And just had a very frustrating loss, I think, on Carolina, which was, the start of the fourth quarter, Carolina was 80% to win the game.
Yeah.
And I caught them +4. Like, I got them at the peak of market as well. So just a little bit frustrating there, but it is what it is. We move forward, right?
Yeah, it still sucks. Doesn't mean we can't be emotional about it at least a little bit. It's not that game annoyed me as a fan just because I'm kind of done with the Tom Brady Bucks and I'm done with Todd Bowles. I kind of would rather see another coach in there and whatever.
Yeah, I forget that you're a Panthers fan sometimes. I completely forget that. That's so great. Clive's decor looks like the apartment in NBA 2K My Career. It actually does. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I'd have to replace wine with something else. I don't know what, maybe some hard liquor. I don't know, but that's not bad. That's pretty good.
That was pretty good. For those who can't stick around for the full show tonight, we usually go along until midnight or so. It's no problem at all. The episode is available in full when you wake up in the morning, in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Music, and obviously here on YouTube as well. Just want to talk through a few talking points from today. And then we can get into next week's card, all the playoff scenarios, who's injured, who has incentive, so on and so forth. I think it's going to be a shit show, to say the least. And we still don't even know what, the Saturday games are going to be, what's going to be flexed into Sunday night either. But let's start with the Vikings and Packers, because that went off the rails really quickly. I am an idiot who finally bet on the Vikings, finally made a wager on the Vikings after, I got to say, maybe a dozen weeks. Not for sure, but I can't remember the last time I bet Minnesota. I'm thinking in my head, they block the punt right at the beginning of the game. And I'm like, here we go. I'm finally on the Vikings luck box train. I'm going to be on the good side of this. They settle for a field goal. And then from there, it's actually the complete opposite. For once, everything just works against them for the entire game, right? Kickoff return goes for a touchdown right afterwards. Defensive touchdown right afterwards on top of that. So Minnesota, can they win the Super Bowl is what I want to get at. Is no. Minnesota, they can. Are we? Okay. We're going to go 0% on Minnesota.
It's always a non-zero, but it's pretty damn close to zero. Some weird freak injuries need to happen. It's in the 99.8% that they know they can't win the Super Bowl.
I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. I think this was a 99th percentile terrible game for them overall. And it's funny because their record in close games still stays intact, but offensive line injuries today, they lose their backup center, they lose their right tackle. Man, it was just a rough watch of that game today. But on the other side of things, what's the takeaway from Green Bay? Because just watching that game, Tony Romo's, he basically is creaming in his pants, like watching the Packers, like, oh, here we go again. It's 2010 all over again. They're going to get in, play 3 road games, go to the Super Bowl. Like, do we think the Packers are that good?
No, the NFC has some vulnerabilities within it. Your 3 best teams, 2 of which have playoff untested quarterbacks in Hurts and Purdy. You're a Cowboy fan. You can tell me what your thoughts are on Dak as a playoff quarterback and how much confidence you would have in him performing in the postseason the way he has in a regular season. There's nobody in the NFC that I trust. Yeah. So can Green Bay win? Maybe, but I mean, it's a rough showing in the NFC, I think. Your 3 best teams are in the AFC, in my opinion.
So Buffalo, KC, and then you're saying Cincinnati would be the 3rd?
Yeah, and Cincinnati is a short hair probably above Philly and San Francisco, but yeah, that's the way I have it.
So, Philly with Hurts this year, they were phenomenal for the most part. They only had that 1 loss to Washington. But now he's missed a couple games. They lose both of them. They lose another player to injury today. Josh Sweat had to go to the hospital with a neck injury in today's game. They're in a position where they have to win to secure their bye next week and win the division, which is no one really thought they were going to be in this position at any point or another. Then you have San Fran, who finally, I've been calling for this for weeks, right? Like, I think very highly of the 49ers. We talked about it on Forward Progress last week. The 49ers, though, like, their secondary is not good. They can be thrown on. And for some reason, teams just like try to pound the ball on them. Like, that never, ever works. Finally, you get Jarrett Stidham, of all people, who's airing it out all over this defense. And now I think there's like kind of a recipe for success, and people are going to realize going forward, maybe we just throw it on the 49ers. Dallas, who knows what you're going to get. Minnesota, I mean, it would take a borderline miracle, in my opinion. Then you have like the Giants, Green Bay, Detroit can possibly get in. Like, the NFC to me is just, question mark after question mark. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there are significant. Well, I mean, the Eagles' biggest weakness is now health and injuries. The Cowboys, maybe some offensive inconsistency. I don't know. But yeah, Devontae Adams and Waller played pretty well and made Stidham look very good. So if the 49ers aren't getting enough pressure with their edge rush, they're going to be in trouble against a team that could pass. So I'm thinking A.J. Brown with Jalen Hurts being somewhat healthy, what can they do? So that's where I think San Francisco's weakness is. So, I mean, I'm saying I agree, but I think there's two teams that could really exploit that.
Yeah, agreed. I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because I see it already. Randy says Daboll is your coach. Brian Daboll is your coach of the year. Sign collectibles. Shanny, coach of the year? Question mark. Who's the coach of the year, do we think?
If you're making me vote on it, I probably do vote Shanahan. I think the Giants have been the second luckiest team when it comes to win-loss, and Daboll has done an amazing job with that team and getting the most out of it that he can. I don't know that there's another coach in the league that would be able to do better with that squad. However, Shanahan being on his 3rd quarterback now and continuing to play well week in and week out, I have a hard time not giving it to Shanahan.
So I think if I had a vote, I would give Nick Sirianni coach of the year, personally, because I think we have a recency bias now, right? Where the Eagles are slumping down the stretch and we're not evaluating the overall body of work, which in my opinion was, yes, the Eagles were like a, win total of 10 going into the year. They were co-favorites with Dallas to win the division when all was said and done. But I think Sirianni's done a great job, and it wasn't until Hurts got hurt before the wheels kind of fell off there. Now, is that a criticism of Shanahan? No. Is it a criticism? Like Brian Daboll, the job that he's done with that roster, they have no receivers whatsoever. Like it's a bad roster. So
that's why I was infuriated today on how the Giants could, put up as many points and how Indy could have such a terrible defensive game plan today to allow Daniel Jones to be the one that hurt them for the most part, extending drives, etc. Sorry, go on.
Daniel Jones looked great today, man. But I mean, not that I put much stock into that. Indy's kind of a dead team, but 5 touchdowns for the Giants offense, 6.5 yards per play, which, I mean, listen, isn't anything to write home about, but for the Giants, it is. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to get into the NFC discussion when we look ahead at next week's lines. How would you rate Detroit, assuming they beat Green Bay, assuming they beat Detroit, or Seattle, assuming they beat the Rams? Okay, it's a very... We'll get into this in terms of how we rate these teams when we discuss next week's games, I think. For me, Detroit is very live. In any scenario where, I mean, they probably don't have to go through a route of cold winter game back-to-back type of situation, which doesn't seem like it's going to be the case, right? Because all of the teams in the, San Fran's good weather, Minnesota inside a dome, Dallas indoor stadium. It's really like a game to Philly. That kind of concerns me with Detroit just because of Goff's history in cold weather games, especially if you get any inclement weather. Seattle? Like, what do we make of Seattle?
So the problem with both Seattle and the Lions, not the problem, but a significant problem, are both have significantly weaker. They're in the weakest third of the league in defense, and that's probably being generous. You force them to play the Cowboys or the Eagles, who also have strong defenses. So Seattle and Detroit, neither one of those teams are really, beating up good, solid defenses all that often. I think those two mismatches are would hurt them. So I don't think they're live. I think there might be a game where, the total goes over what you might expect, and there might be a little bit more fireworks, but I just don't see them winning against two of those teams.
I'm with you, I think. Although, I always think of the Lions, I think, okay, I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I watched Detroit play in Dallas, and Dallas closed 7-point favorite in that game, ends up covering the game. A Jamal Williams fumble at the goal line that completely flipped. The Lions would have went in for a lead at that point. Really difficult in my opinion. But the Seahawks, I don't want to watch forget about betting aside, just from a pure neutral perspective, I don't want to watch the Seahawks in the playoffs. I hope that the Seahawks don't get there. So their path right now is basically they have to win and Detroit has to beat Green Bay. So Green Bay needs to lose. And the Seahawks would get that final spot in the playoffs. I do not want that to happen. I mean, no offense if you're a Seahawks fan or anything, but to me, they are by far the worst of the teams that are, I don't want to say by far because the Giants, I think, stink as well. But that there's no appeal to me of watching a Seattle in a playoff game or watching teams that I know or I feel have absolutely no chance to win a Super Bowl. And that's what I would say with the Seahawks.
Yeah, and that's why I liked it better with six playoff teams in each conference. Mm-hmm. I understand it makes the regular season have more impactful games later in the season. It makes more games matter. Fine, whatever. But you're going to get into that point where, you have a team like Seattle who's probably in a generous power ranking, probably a 1.5 under average.
Yeah, I think in that general vicinity, yes.
That's not great. You really want to watch that come postseason? No, I don't. So that's where I think the flaw is. But no matter what, you make the most of it, and it's still going to be fun. But the first week just isn't as good as it used to be for playoffs, at least the way I used to see it.
It's tough to say. So what I didn't like about the previous format was that you'd have two teams with a bye, and then that bye, I mean, granted, now it's just one. The bye is extremely important in the playoffs. Let's put it that way. So you used to have these riveting first round matchups, like the divisional matchups or wildcard matchups, I should say. Then you get to the next round, And all these teams that were on the bye weeks would just smoke the team that played the week before. Like, it was pretty frequent where you'd see bigger spreads because the bye week was worth so much more. And that was annoying to me. So I don't know if I like that format better. I kind of just hate the bye week, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's fair enough that you just play a weaker opponent. But, I mean, that's completely contradictory to the tradition of the NFL and what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the right answer would really be to eliminate that.
Yes. Definitely, like, listen, I get the advantage and a team earns it. You play, 17 games and you should have some sort of advantage. I just wonder if it's too much that one team has a bye. Feels pretty big advantage.
Yeah, in this situation, I mean, the Giants are playing for nothing next week, right? As far as I know, they can't leave the 6th seed. So, I mean, I don't even know who they play next week. Meaning, like, do they play Jones for a couple series? Do they play him a half? What are they going to do with him? So the Eagles are probably still going to have that. I guess the only thing that's really up in the air in terms of seeding is what the Vikings and the 49ers.
And technically the 49ers can still get the 1 seed in the NFC.
If the Eagles lose, right.
And the Cowboys as well, because I think the Cowboys are so I'll go through the scenarios right now. But
okay.
NFC is very easy to figure out because all the NFC games are done for the week. So we know the exact scenarios. Anyone listening in regards to the AFC, we're in the 4th quarter here of Ravens and Steelers. But then on top of that, we have Bengals, Bills tomorrow night. So we're not going to know the scenarios for the AFC. That's going to be a little bit more challenging to do. But for the NFC, Philly, very simple. If they win the division, they win the NFC East. If they win, or if Dallas loses, they win the number 1 seed. If they win, Dallas loses and San Fran loses. That's like, number 1 seed, home field advantage, first round bye. Either of those scenarios. Philly win or a Dallas loss plus a San Fran loss. Either of those works. Green Bay and Detroit and Seattle. We talked about that. So Green Bay gets the playoff berth if they win. The Detroit Lions need to win themselves at Green Bay, and they need Seattle to lose. Seattle needs to win. They need Green Bay to lose. Those are the big things that we're looking at. San Fran can get the number 1 seed if they win and Philly loses. That's the scenario. So number 1 seed for the 49ers if they win and Philly loses. Dallas gets the number 1 seed if they win, Philly loses, San Fran loses. So that's kind of your totem pole or your pecking order. Philly, San Fran, Dallas for number 1 seed. Whew.
I mean, I know you had 49ers another bet, but my 49ers futures look better and better if, the 49ers can get the 1 seed, but there's a lot of challenge there.
For sure. I mean, listen, we'll get to what the spread is going to be in the Eagles and Giants next week. It's not a foregone conclusion that the Eagles are going to win, but it seems very likely because you're right. The Giants have no reason to even play starters. They might play them for a series or something. You know how teams treat the final week, like, get in tune for the playoffs.
Dress rehearsal. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. However, what I do want to point out is from a betting perspective, we have traditionally seen in week 18, the teams that are playing for something tend to be horrible spread bets, because typically we're going to see, I don't want to say inflated numbers, but it's starters against backups a lot of times. And that's, the market is generally going to drift towards the team that's playing starters. So that's just a point of emphasis as we go through these week's games, which we'll do right now. And we'll get it started here, Clive, with, we could look at the entire board and kind of just go game by game and decide what we want to do. But Dallas and Washington. So again, this is a game where if Dallas can improve their playoff positioning, it's extremely unlikely that they will. Washington's eliminated from the playoffs today. By the way, did you see the Ron Rivera postgame?
I did not.
Oh, Ron Rivera had no idea that they were eliminated from the playoffs today.
Oh.
No clue. Did not know that this was like a win. And He then issued a statement after the fact saying that he did know, but he was just caught off guard by the question. It was a backpedaling of the century. But it's first day of 2023, already a candidate for backpedaling of the year, Ron Rivera today. But he was asked at his presser and had no clue that they were actually eliminated, which makes me wonder if he knew what starting Carson Wentz actually meant for the entire season. Like, I don't know that he knew that the season was on the line today.
Solid. That's a great job, and not surprised at all. I was not surprised to see the line move towards Cleveland today the way that it did. I thought it might happen maybe a little bit earlier in the week, but it didn't. Washington's probably where they belong on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But great job, Ron. Riverboat Ron.
Yes. The longest pause. If it was just like he was trying to process the question that was being asked, and then he didn't know. Really quickly going to respond to this question here. The entire schedule is not 1 p.m. next week. The problem is that the NFL has not yet flexed the game. So there's going to be 2 Saturday games. There's going to be a 4:30 and an 8:20 Saturday night games. And then there's going to be a game flexed to Sunday Night Football. I feel with a pretty high degree of confidence that Tennessee-Jacksonville is going to be flexed to Sunday Night Football next week, because that's a win and you're in game. And I don't think that there's another one of those next week.
And there's nothing else that affects either of those 2 teams. It's really just those 2. So that makes the most sense.
Right. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, Green Bay, Detroit's going to be Sunday Night Football. No, because if Seattle wins during the day, Detroit's out. Like, I don't know why they would want to put that into Sunday Night Football. I'd be surprised. So, and then during Sunday Night Football this week, Tirico said they'll announce it tomorrow. So I think it's pretty certain that Tennessee-Jacksonville will be that game. I mean, it could end up being Ravens-Bengals potentially for the division, possibly. We'll wait and see. But to answer that question, no. It's not all 1 p.m. games. So let's take a look at this. This Dallas-Washington game is influenced by Philadelphia and the Giants. And Philadelphia opens a 14-point favorite against the New York Giants. We don't know if Jalen Hurts will play, but it's expected that he probably will. What we do know is that Lane Johnson has a pretty serious injury. Josh Sweat today with an injury. I don't want to lay 14 points with the Eagles in week 18 just because it's like a must win for them. This is like bordering on absurd. Who's the backup for the Giants? I'm pretty sure it's still Tyrod Taylor. Like, it is. Yeah. Yep. I mean, Tyrod's not good, but he's not completely incompetent either. Like the Eagles, this is a big spread, like big spread.
Yeah. This is a big number to lay. I mean, I always struggle week 17 and week 18 for the most part when there's differing motivations. But the one thing that, and you mentioned this earlier, there are a lot of guys that are, call them, 25 and below on the roster that are all playing for jobs. They're always playing for jobs. That is the one thing that I guess I appreciate as a byproduct of having non-guaranteed contracts. That is the only thing that I think is a positive. The rest of it I hate. But you have those guys that are playing for jobs this year, next year, whatever, and they want to look as good as possible. So I think 14 is a lot to lay, but it's kind of a matter of what you think Dable's going to do. He's the kind of coach, though, that would not surprise me to go a little bit more all out than the average coach in this situation.
I think it's probably like, I don't think that I think best case scenario, if you bet the Giants, you maybe get one half from the starters.
Yeah.
First half. That's probably your best case scenario. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I mean, for perspective, the Eagles at their peak this year was like mid-season. They laid 14 on the road at Houston. So roughly an implied line of like 17 at home. So the Giants backups are being valued at better than Houston. So somebody might be able to make an argument that maybe it's value with the Eagles. I just don't see a scenario in which I want to bet Philly at this price. I really don't.
No.
Yeah. Like what more likely to come down, I would say. But I
agree.
And I think just like speaking from history and betting the final week of the season, typically what happens is the favorite gets bet out a little bit more, and then later in the week towards post, you get the buyback on the underdog. I'm not saying that's going to necessarily happen because the NFL market is evolving and like things happen, things change. But that's the most likely scenario in my opinion. So now you have Dallas laying 6 against Washington. I don't like Washington has nothing to play for. They probably go back to Heineke because
But Ron Rivera doesn't know that they have nothing to play for. So remember that.
He may still think that there's a chance that they can make the playoffs. He might think that there's a chance.
So careful.
Yes. Dallas on extra rest. But again, like what's a typical Dallas on the road at Washington number? Like forget about motivation, but if they lined up today, I'm guessing that I would have made Dallas 4.5 at Washington.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Maybe 4, or are you thinking higher?
I was thinking maybe more like 5 to 5.5, but I'm lower on Washington, I think, than most people. So I think that's your number's probably better in that regard towards market.
So we're basically saying now, okay, Dallas needs to win this game. So, we're gonna bump up the number to 6. Washington doesn't have anything to play for. But to your point from earlier, I mean, a lot of times it doesn't matter that they don't have anything to play for because these are professionals. A lot of these guys are going to have incentives built into their contracts and things of that nature as well, right? So, I mean, I don't think that there's a scenario here where Dallas is just going to get bet up. And in fact, you also have to consider the scenario where, okay, Dallas looks at the scoreboard at the half because they're very likely going to play this game at the exact same time as Philly and the Giants. We don't know that for sure yet, but the NFL does do that. And if Philly's up 21, Philly's up 21 at the half, guess what Mike McCarthy's doing? Dak, sit your ass on the bench. Like, let's get these starters out of the game type of scenario because they don't want to get hurt going into the playoffs either. So I think that there's probably some upside with Washington here.
I agree. On the one hand, you have that. On the other hand, if Cooper Rush plays, is that the worst thing in the world? Like, he is done better than I think most people would have expected when Dak was out. I mean, I think he would come in and play hard if that was the case too. These are just tough situations to handicap. I don't know how McCarthy would really kind of handle this.
Right. I agree with you.
And Pollard's coming off of an injury. Like, he didn't play this week, so he's not going to likely see a lot. Elliott is another one who's been very who you'd want to protect, let's say. Yeah, I don't like laying 6 here with Dallas.
No. I'm kind of revealing my original thoughts on every game. Week 18 is just like another animal in terms of handicapping it. And a lot of people always say, what really gets me about week 18 used to be week 17, but you get a ton of, you got to be a degenerate to be betting the final week of the season, right? It's like, oh, how do you bet this stuff when you don't know what's going to happen?
This is NFL preseason, but in reverse. Like, this is exactly, it's all in information.
Exactly. All you have to do is be able to accurately predict what's going to happen better than other people. It's not like you need to have a crystal ball and know exactly how long everyone's going to play. You just have to be able to do it better than other people. So yes, that's it. Okay. Let's get into like the meaningful games here. So Green Bay and Detroit next week in the NFC. I'm just going to quickly look at the opener here that came out. I thought this opened like 4 earlier, if I was incorrect. So still at 4 at circa 4.5 everywhere else, 5 for Pinnacle. I mean,
look aheads were like earlier this week. I see 3.5s and 3s, and it reopened at 4.5. So there has been some reaction to Green Bay winning today, in the fashion in which they've won.
And this is the Lions cold weather golf game, right?
Yeah,
as
probably.
well. Man, I got to tell you, immediate standout is this is too many points to be
I
swapping
agree.
the Lions.
100%. I think this is, I think 4 is a number where I'd be kind of, where I'd probably still be leaning towards Lions, honestly, at that number. I think 3.5 is probably the right number.
The dog is going nuts over there, man. Like you had such a bad betting week, you couldn't feed him, or what's going on there?
No, she was sick. She had a rough weekend, like a
that's
real
no
rough
good.
weekend.
I feel bad for even cracking a joke now.
It's all right.
It sounds like she's up and going though now.
Yeah, she is. She just went into her little sleeping spot.
Nice. Yeah, I know. Obviously, I've been a dog owner for a long time. I know how they are. They're very particular with things. It sounds like she's like maybe trying to dig and like find a nice spot for herself there. But
yeah, get comfortable.
Yeah. The Steelers Ravens game is coming down to the wire. Okay, so what's like you said the look ahead was 3.5 or so along those lines in this game.
If 3.5.
If these teams played today, I would have made Green Bay like 3.25 personally.
That's about right. I think I liked Green Bay a little bit more than probably the market. I did not make a play. I'm being transparent. I did not make a play at them today when it came down to 3. I just I passed, but I couldn't see myself betting the Vikings today, in all honesty. But I mean, at 4.5, this number just seems a little too much.
So I know that Green Bay won 41-10 today. Bear with me when I say this here, but the Packers offense, in my opinion, still did not look good. Like, last week it was like, oh, it's the coming out party for Green Bay's offense. Like the Packers won because they won the turnover margin by 4, and they got a special teams and defensive touchdown. Like offensively speaking, this is a horrible Vikings defense. Horrible. Packers averaged 5.2 yards per play. Granted, that's brought down a little bit because of the game state, and they started running out the clock later on. But I still don't think like Green Bay's offensive problems are all just solved now.
No, and when we talked earlier about do the Vikings have any chance? No, because their pass defense is awful, god awful. So I can't take too much out of this Green Bay win at all today. The way in which they scored, pick 6, kick return. Not that there's not skill to that, but I mean, the outcome of this game was definitely on the range of a lot of randomness influencing. So somebody asked in the chat, and I'm sorry it moved. I don't know who said it now. Nathan, are we upgrading Green Bay too much? At this number, I think we are.
I would agree. I do not think Green Bay is going to close above 4.5 or 5. Maybe I'm nuts, but and listen, there is a lot of market support for Green Bay right now. Like, and just everybody feels like Green Bay is that team right now, right? Like that's the general consensus. If there's one team that's going to mix shit up in the NFC and cause chaos, it's going to be Green Bay. And I think that's kind of built into the opening price here, personally.
So what would you give personally Green Bay as a home field versus Detroit? 2.5?
Green Bay has one of the biggest home fields in sports in January, in football in January. Yeah. I mean,
so I don't see Green Bay as being 2 full points better. Even if you make it 3, I still only have Green Bay about a point better than Detroit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how extreme do you have to make home field to get it here? Yeah. I think we're both in agreement. I think this will close around 3.5, personally.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Also interesting to me, and of note, the Seahawks are being priced like the Los Angeles Chargers were priced today against the LA Rams. If you want to talk about inflation and what one win will do for you, the Seahawks were a sinking ship. Now they can get in next week if the Lions upset the Packers and the Seahawks win. And now all of a sudden we get a point spread of 6.5. And for those who are watching, you're probably seeing a theme here as Kenny Pickett hits Najee Harris for the go-ahead touchdown right now. Pickett escaping the sack, just like very. I mean, they don't put up a lot of points, do the Steelers, but I maintain that they're a very underrated team.
I mean, when they play for field goals, I think you said this today, right? Like Tampa Bay always needs to play like they're down 2 scores.
Yep.
Pittsburgh might be a similar scenario where, like, yeah, you have a little more talent than I think you play. You play to your weakness, unfortunately, like just trying to run the ball all the time. Anyway, I wish I would have saw the play. How much time's left?
There is 56 seconds left.
Okay.
And we got 16-13. So that just happened. The chat erupted, and I just looked up and saw it at the exact same time because I'm on the stream delay as I watch the show here. There's a question I'll answer in a second, but I do want to talk about this game. So, like, again, if the Seahawks and Rams played today, what's the spread in Seahawks Rams if the game transpired today? I mean, it's not close. It's not close to this, right? Like, it's probably 4.5. I'm guessing
in Seattle. 4 to 4.5.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate number. Now, Seattle, impressive win today in terms of the margin of victory, but again, not that impressive of a win. Like, +3 in turnover margin. Mike White, in my opinion, was bad today. Completely got that read wrong with the Jets. But the Seahawks had 198 rushing yards. Their passing game is still not working. 4.9 yards per play today. I don't like. How am I not going to be on the Rams next week? Like, what price range are we getting to here? Like, this is borderline absurd, in my opinion.
So this is a game that would normally be on at 4:00 too, right? Like, so are they probably, and I know we're trying to anticipate stuff that is kind of hard to predict, but do you put Detroit and Green Bay and this game both on at 4:00 and have the Eagles, the Cowboys, those are 1:00 games. Maybe the Jets Dolphins, that'll be another 1:00 game. But that's probably the way that it goes, right?
Every meaningless game will be at 1:00. Like, that's what they do. They put they stack like Tampa Bay, Atlanta, all the shit that doesn't matter is going at 1:00. So, I think this is going to be a late game along with Green Bay, Detroit, played at the same time. What games can you even put on Saturday in standalone spots is a good question. Maybe that's like a Bengals-Ravens game for the division because that's possible.
Yeah, I think that one actually makes sense there. Panthers Saints will probably be a Sunday night or a Sunday 1:00 game. Texans Colts, that's meaningless. Ravens Bengals.
It could also be like one of those like for example the Steelers and Browns. Like, the Steelers win this game, they're still alive, right, in the playoff race. It's like it's an extreme edge case. So maybe you put that on the Saturday, right, where the Steelers now know the outcome of their game and they're just like waiting and watching the rest. I don't know. I mean, it's a good point. I don't know that you can put the Bengals there because they can't go Monday night to Saturday. Tough one. Like, I don't know what those 2 Saturday games are going to be. I honestly have no idea.
Steelers Browns has like got that rivalry feel to it, and that, like you said, that is that edge case. That would not be that shocking. Tennessee Jacksonville, I think, does make a lot of sense as one of the Saturday games or the Sunday night game. It's got to be one or the other.
Agreed. Yeah, but I was just sort of thinking, like, who are the teams that are alive, that will be alive to make the playoffs, but it's very, very unlikely. Put those in the Saturday spots and then have them watch the Sunday games just praying for other teams to lose. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of the scenario for me there. I will say Seattle did close as a 7-point favorite on the road at the Rams on December 4th. They didn't cover that game. They won by 4, 27-23. But they did close 7 away from home. That, in my opinion, was a different Seattle team, or at least our perception of them was different. Yes. But the Rams are still without Aaron Donald. They're without their starting center, Brian Allen. Is like Baker Mayfield that sizable of an upgrade? Tough one.
I think the Seahawks were at the peak of their perceived value at that point. And was that a Wolford game?
I think it was John Wolford, wasn't it?
I thought so.
I'm going to check out the box score right now, but if
I don't know how much you upgrade Mayfield, maybe a point or a point and a half. I don't know.
It was John Wolford, and Wolford threw 2 picks in that game as well.
Yeah.
What else do we have that's live in the NFC next week? Okay, just some really quick thoughts on the other NFC games that have little to no playoff implications. So we have Tampa Bay and Atlanta. 7s and 8s on the board right now for the early opening numbers. Tampa Bay's backup quarterback is Blaine Gabbert. I don't know if you watched today, but Atlanta already played a bunch of backups in the Arizona Cardinals, and they stunk it up in that game. Like, who's going to go out and lay a big price with Atlanta next week is what I need to know.
Yeah, that's no. This feels like an exhibition game, like that, except the number's too big. So,
and the Steelers just picked off Tyler Huntley, and that's going to end the game.
The 4th AFC alternate at quarterback? That can't happen. That can't be.
And that's going to end the game. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to back Tampa when they're starting Tom Brady and they're laying points as favorites, but like now all of a sudden, if you're going to give me over a touchdown, like think of all the injuries that the Cardinals had today. They were down to David Blau started at quarterback. They're missing their starting 2 corners. They're missing Zach Allen on the defensive line. DeAndre Hopkins didn't play. Robbie Anderson got hurt in the game. Like, no.
This is excessive. This is very, 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 very excessive.
I agree. I agree with that.
What other games? You have the Vikings game, which I guess it matters for seeding. And I see -1 or 1.5 on the board, depending on where I'm looking.
Yep, that's pretty much across the board. FanDuel's got a rogue like 2.5 in that game. Justin Fields looks like pretty visibly like
beat
broken.
Up.
He is their entire offense, right? So, and I know he wants to beat all these like Lamar Jackson records and stuff like that, but it might just be time to say like, God, like, you know, you had a great year, you developed a lot, like, let's not suffer a devastating injury. And Minnesota is just, you know, I'm going to just quickly pull up the backups because you might see some backup quarterback play in both this. So I think it's Nick Mullins for the Vikings. I'm pretty sure Nick Mullins is the backup there. And if Chicago, I mean, they started Fields this far, so they might just continue doing that. But it was Peterman warming up on the sideline today, Nathan Peterman, when Fields got hurt. So I honestly have no clue where this is going to go, unless like this is going to be one of those news related games, probably where people just are going to have their pulse on news and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards liking Minnesota at -1 because if I'm Chicago, but I would have pulled Fields the minute something looked bad today, and he had a couple of hits today.
Right. We also got Carolina and the Saints in a meaningless game. Saints open up -5 at home. Again, we don't know the state of mind of either team, having both been eliminated from the playoffs. New Orleans has been content to just ride out Andy Dalton for a while now. I don't see that changing. They probably will just let him play again. He's not part of their future. So if he gets hurt, it's not exactly the end of the world for them altogether. And Carolina, probably another game where they just see what they have in Sam Darnold. I don't see them going back to PJ Walker. So it's probably a game where you see most of the starters for both teams, I would assume.
This is a game that's probably pretty close to a game that I would line like a normal game for these two teams, unfortunately. You got a Carolina coach that's still playing to show that maybe he deserves the job. There's definitely motivation there for that too. So I think this number is a little high. for what I think this game's going to be.
I agree. You have to account for the injury. Like Panthers have JC Horn being out, killed them. Like Mike Evans just absolutely torched them today. And this was like obvious passing situations, right? The Bucks are down 14 and he's getting one-on-one down the field against a backup cornerback and just taking him to school. Yeah, I mean, unless you get some news from Carolina that they're shutting a bunch of players down, I don't see how this goes higher either. Like this is just another game where it's going to be dog or pass.
Yeah, agreed. This was 3. I'm just using what I have in front of me. So Superbook had -3 on Thursday. FanDuel had 3.5s and 4s this week. Oh no, that was only today. Sorry, my mistake. What did DraftKings open? DraftKings opened at 3. So a 2-point swing seems like a lot for a game that means the same-ish to both teams.
The final game in the NFC that we didn't talk about is San Fran, Arizona, which again, there are implications for San Fran, right? If Philly loses and San Fran wins, San Fran would lock up the number 1 seed. So you get a point spread of 13.5. Honestly, this doesn't feel too inflated to me. Like a little bit, but not a lot. I would have expected this to be even a little bit higher.
Not when you have 6.5 from the Falcons to the Cardinals today. I mean, this might be light. Like
this is the same challenge as the Cowboys game, though, right? In that if it's halftime and Philly's up a whole lot against the Giants, what does San Fran do in the second half? I'm curious. The first half line here, DraftKings has -6.5, -125, Pinnacle -7 +101. I'd be way more inclined to play San Francisco first half than I would to play full game.
Oh yeah, so that was the question. Is that the question that you wanted to get to? Do first half and derivatives have more value this week?
Yeah, and it was up here. Someone asked it earlier. I tried to mark it, and I
think it was Scott.
I completely lost it. But it was a question about whether you play derivatives this week, and I think you have to like organize, like construct the game in your head and like the logic in your head. Now, the market is not dumb either. So like sometimes you will see in the final week of a season, a team might be a 14-point favorite. They might be -10 in the first half because the market is already adjusted for that as well. But in this case, I do not see that personally. And I mean,
no, this shouldn't be a split half, like just, first half would be half of what the game is.
Right. This is actually a Saturday option, San Fran, Arizona. It's a decent Saturday option because San Fran, and like that would change things for me, by the way. If San Fran, Arizona play on Saturday and San Fran is not concurrently playing with Philadelphia, then there's no incentive for them to remove starters unless it's a huge blowout, right? They don't have a scoreboard to look at.
And otherwise, they would want to put probably a West Coast game at 4:00 too. So you have those other games. So do you give San Francisco the benefit of knowing what the Eagles and the Cowboys both do at 1:00? Saturday seems like a fair option.
I think I'm pretty sure this is going to be a David Blau start again. I have no idea why they would bring Colt McCoy out of concussion protocol again, only to start the final game of the season. That would make no sense to me if they did that.
No, not at all. I'm wondering where you put the Patriots-Bills game next week.
That's a good question too, but so Cincy and Buffalo are both challenging because they play Monday Night Football. Like, would the NFL would, honestly. The NFL would give a team that played Monday Night Football a Saturday game. I could totally see it.
If it's one of these two teams, or being the Bills or the Patriots, and that particular, yes, they would.
Like it would. It's stupid, but the NFL does stupid things all the time. So, I mean,
they really only care about one thing. I'm trying to see. I don't remember the scenario for the Patriots right now. They're the 7th team, right? Like they have the advantage to the point where if they win, they're in, right?
I'm double checking right now. So the current playoff picture, the Patriots are 7th right now. Patriots are in that 7 seed.
They tied with the Dolphins, meaning they split their 1-1 this season.
Right.
And they have the division advantage. So if they win this game, yes, I think they're in.
Agreed.
They have a better conference record than the Steelers. Yeah, so they have the tie break, so they control their destiny.
Which, man, like, I hope I can't do more Patriots in the playoffs. I can't. Like, no, I don't want to see this. I mean, it just depends, really, because, like, I also don't want to see. It might not even be Teddy Bridgewater. A guy, like, broke 2 fingers today, right?
He did.
So that final spot in the AFC.
I want to see the Steelers, to be honest.
I want to see the Steelers. I honestly want to see the Steelers in the playoffs. I would love a Steelers-Bills game in the wild card round. Like 2 versus 7, Steelers-Bills. To me, that is like this like pure January football that I want to watch. It would be like a fantastic 20-13 game.
Yeah. So Bills or the Chiefs or the Bengals, for that matter, versus the Steelers, any one of those games I would be happy to watch.
Agreed. All right, let's take it. So New England, Buffalo is a good one to start with. Again,
I am not Canadian, for what it's worth.
Who said
or Noble? Are you both Canadians? Just throwing that out there.
No, Clive is not.
I'm a Jerseyan. Yeah,
he's from New Jersey.
Way worse. Way worse.
Much worse. No, we're not both Canadian.
Both Italian, not both Canadian.
True. Bixby must be from the north of Italy, where they don't put the traditional A, E, I, or O at the end of the last name.
It's Bixbiano is what it really is.
Bixbiano. Okay. Well, yes. So not widely available yet, but we are starting to see up. So again, this is small limits. Buffalo still plays tomorrow night, but there is somewhat of a market available on this game, actually bigger than I would have even thought. Even Circa opened up this game as well. 7.5, 8.5, 9s. Whoo! I mean, New England is bad, man. Their offense is bad.
Yeah.
It is a big number. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't think this is big. Like, Buffalo's still going to have what happens if Buffalo loses to Cincy? Can they not get the 1 seed? Let's see. I'm just going to run a quick generator here because we have to work through all of these on the fly. But if Buffalo loses to Cincy and then Buffalo wins next week and KC loses, Buffalo still gets the 1 seed. So either way, Buffalo is in play for the 1 seed next week. It's going to be a meaningful game for them.
So let's see, 13 and 4. What if Cincy wins both games? So they beat Buffalo, that's obvious. And then Cincy beats the Bengals, then they're also 13 and 4. Do they have the tiebreaker over both teams? I don't remember shit, man.
All right, here's the beauty of modern day technology. We'll run a scenario generator live on screen. Thank you to ESPN for the playoff machine, which I like to use every single year. Credit to ESPN here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for the audience. Well, you only need to see the logo, so it's not the end of the world if it's small, right? Yeah. So let's say Cincy wins tomorrow night. So we'll click Cincy here. They would leapfrog Buffalo for the 2 and 3 seed. Then we go to next week. Cincy beats Baltimore at home, and KC loses to the Raiders. Cincy could go to the number 1 seed.
That's what I thought.
So it's alive for them as well next week. 1 seed is in play if they beat Buffalo tonight, for those who are listening in podcast form.
And if anybody wants to bet, not to be, I don't want to come off toutish. That's a big thing in gambling Twitter lately. There's a Buffalo -7 right now out there. Which is
it's tempting.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that they've creamed the Patriots recently as well. I'm just seeing on Twitter here, actually, and in our chat, thank you very much. The Saturday games have been announced. We're going to have Kansas City and Las Vegas as the early game.
Not sure.
And we're having Titans Jags Saturday night. winning in Saturday night. Technically, do the Jags still have another path to get in as a wild card or no?
I don't think so.
I think that changed. I think that changed with today's games, right?
So if Jacksonville loses and New England loses and Miami loses and Steelers lose, maybe it's possible.
Okay. Well, with the beauty of modern day technology at ESPN, if Jacksonville loses, so Titans win, we need New England to lose to Buffalo. So Buffalo wins. We need Miami to lose to the Jets. And Pittsburgh loses, I guess, as well. Then Jacksonville gets in as the 7 seed. So they still do have the path for the wild card. They just need every other team to lose, basically.
We've seen crazier stuff in the last week of the NFL, though.
We see crazy shit every single year in the last week of the NFL. People
like
forget,
every team that needs to win, all this motivation, right? Win and you're in. And then teams that doesn't matter, they still manage to win.
So does this mean that the Pats and Bills will be Sunday night? Because then the Patriots need to win to hold on to their 7 seed, and the Bills could improve their playoff positioning? Like, that's got to be the... I mean, it could still be Baltimore-Cincy as well, right? Still can be that game. But, I mean, I think that's also an option now, Bills-Patriots.
I think they'll put the Ravens-Bengals game there if they're not putting... that's me personally, because they're not just playing for seeding, they're playing for the division. Whereas that's what I would do. But that's me. I think New England and Buffalo play at 1. So the Jets and the Dolphins play at 1.
Right. I think those are foregone conclusions. So listen, apologies here. I'm going to level with the audience. I have no idea when they're going to announce what's flexed to Sunday night, but I think it makes sense if the Bills beat the Bengals tomorrow that they'd flex that to Sunday night, because then it's for the division, right? Cincy Ravens for the division.
Cincy Ravens is for the division still, yes. I believe so.
Right. If
Buffalo wins, yes.
If Buffalo wins tomorrow, and then Cincy Baltimore's for the division. Baltimore could win. They could leapfrog and move to the 3 seed. The funny thing is there's actually like a very, very likely path to Bengals and Ravens just playing 2 weeks in a row as well, which I always love when that happens. But it could be very possible that the Bengals get the 3 and the Ravens get the 6, and they just play again.
Two plays 7. Yeah, geez, that's true.
So lots of crazy scenarios like that. Okay, no full market open on Cleveland, Pittsburgh yet. Sportsbooks have taken that off the board. Baltimore, Cincy's off the board. So New England, Buffalo, we agree that this has to be higher than 7, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if there's no circumstance where it doesn't matter in some way, shape, or form for the Bills. So I don't know how this is what it is.
Right. Jets and Dolphins. Let me pull up BetStamp again here quickly. So Jets and Dolphins, we have, looks like 3.5. Some 3s out there, but mostly market at 3.5, which is, Skylar Thompson game. I know that they need to win to get in, but like, what are we doing here at this point? I got to ask myself, like,
and this is why I think, not in fairness, but in terms of just keeping things interesting, that's why I think the New England Bills game should be at 1 with this game at 1:00, because those two, the Patriots, Dolphins interdependency on that last playoff spot.
I want the Dolphins to get in, but only if I could watch Tua in the playoffs. Like, I want Tyreek Hill to play the Chiefs. Like, that would be an interesting one for me. Or some scenario, Dolphins-Bills again. Dolphins-Bills was a great game. The Dolphins can play great games, but 3.5 going to look appealing with the Jets. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That seems well. So it'll still probably be Mike White, right? Like, there's
Yep.
no reason to let Zach Wilson back, even in the beginning. Yeah, and the Jets, I think 3.5 is too much.
I think I would have made it 3.5 with Bridgewater today, honestly.
Yeah. I have the Jets maybe like a point below average. Dolphins 2. I have like 1.5 above. So 1.5. Yeah. So that's 3.5 with Bridgewater.
Right.
Is Tua any shot of playing next week?
I mean, he does have a shot of playing, but he's had 3 concussions this year. I gotta wonder, like, Patrick asked, "Is that a Tua line?" I don't think this is a Tua line. Like, it would be. It's way higher with Tua.
Yeah,
like way higher. Teddy can't grip a ball, so I don't know if he plays or not. But he literally could not grip a ball today after he hurt his fingers. So
they might be a better team with Tyreek Hill at quarterback.
Skylar Thompson looked so good in the preseason, and that's why you just never trust the preseason, because he looks like a bag of ass is what I would say he looks like.
What game was it that Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out the first play? Jets game?
No. Was it Jets? No, Vikings.
Oh, yeah, that's when I had the Dolphins, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe this isn't so bad with Skylar Thompson, and it was.
It was pretty rough. Okay, the big one. Now Saturday. What's our market on Jags and Titans? Jags -7. We don't know who's going to be the quarterback for the Titans. I thought Josh Dobbs looked way better than Malik Willis. That's a given. Willis he can't throw the ball downfield. There's a lot to process here because we can't just use like the market rating for Tennessee this week. It's going to be, pretty far off because of the amount of injuries that they had and players that they just didn't play for this game overall. But as much as I'm down on the Titans, we've come quite a way on the Jags recently. Like, again, another big price. I'm very curious to look at what this line was when they played the last time they played earlier in the season, which I'm going to pull up right now. But my first gut instinct was lots of points. Like the Jags have not been in this position a whole lot.
That's true.
I mean, really, like they laid 3.5 at Houston today, right? Now, granted, they won 31-3, but they laid 3.5 at Houston today. They laid 3 at home to the Giants at the end of October, and they're going to lay 7 now.
They were -4 at Tennessee week 4. Lost the game outright 24-17. I want to say Derrick Henry had a good game that day, but I don't remember. Not great. 22, 114, 1 touchdown. Tannehill threw for 137. Oh, no, that's the wrong game. That doesn't make sense.
I was going to say, I thought they played in the beginning of December. Like, didn't Jacksonville win big on the road? I think I bet Jacksonville
36-22. Yeah,
okay,
there we go.
Jacksonville was a field goal underdog in that game, right?
3.5.
Okay. Now, very different without Tannehill. Completely different offense altogether. However, this is a big adjustment, like massive adjustment. And I'm a believer in Jacksonville. Don't get me wrong. I love the Jags, but huge adjustment here. And
this is a pure quarterback, like third string number.
I don't see this closing above 7. I don't. Maybe I'm out to lunch, but
I'm wondering if it just stays here. I think you're right that if it's probably going to go one way, it's going to go a little bit towards the Titans, but I feel like 7's the right number just based off what I know now, and I'm assuming Henry's going to play. Do I think that's too high of a number? I do think it's too high of a number, but that's where I think it might stay.
Okay. We saw Jared Stidham look like Dan Marino today for the Raiders. They're getting 9.5 to 10 points at home to Kansas City. I mean, I honestly just feel like I'm a broken record at this point with how I'm breaking down every single one of these games. But like, I mean, same number as San Fran today, I guess, is what you can argue. But how do you not upgrade Stidham slightly, at least slightly? KC needing to win by margin again. Like Kansas City never wins by margin. They beat the Seahawks 24-10 last week. It was like the most lackluster performance. I don't know, man. I don't know what these Chiefs numbers, but
I have no interest in taking the Chiefs 9.5 against this Raider team. None. Zero. I mean, Stidham was fine today. I mean, that was a game that I had on most of the time. A little bit more mobile than I expected, like moved around a little bit, which was nice to see. He wasn't a statue. But, I mean, Chiefs were what, 12.5, 13-point favorites coming down from 14? Is that what it opened at, 14?
Yep, played another close game against the Broncos. This has been like a theme for them in the division this year. They played a close game at home Monday Night Football against the Raiders earlier this season. Oh, no, wasn't at home. Wasn't that Mexico? Or was it at home?
Which game?
Raiders and Chiefs Monday Night Football earlier this year. What? I think it was a Chiefs. So I don't remember what the location.
Was the 49ers game in Mexico versus Dallas? Not Dallas, Denver?
49ers Cardinals, I think.
49ers Cardinals. That was Mexico.
Yes, you're right. But that's a big number again. Lots of big numbers.
Depending on what time the game is played, the Chiefs might not have any mobility in there. Oh, no, it's a Saturday game. They already announced it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to play all out. All right, never mind. 10's still a lot. 9.5 still a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
I'm hoping it comes into teaser range. That's what I want to see out of that game. That's the only way I'm taking the Chiefs.
The Grupo Firme game. Yes, it was. I forgot about that. We got so many viewers at the halftime, myself and Eric Eager on that stream because of Grupo Firme doing that game. I'll just put this on the record. I'll throw this out there. Okay. Washington, Cleveland, Arizona, the Giants, the Jets, the Raiders, the Rams. 7 games next week where you have one team that has quote unquote nothing to play for against another team that has something to play for. I would make a bet that if you bet all 7 of those teams right now, you're probably going to win money this week. I feel, or at least you're going to get some good closing line value. Maybe not closing line value. I just think that I'm looking at these numbers, and if these games were played this week, these aren't the numbers that these games are going to be. Like they're not.
These dog numbers are out of control, and the only one that seems underpriced is the Bills Patriots game.
Yeah, but both teams have something to play for there, right?
Yeah. I just don't. Chargers Broncos. We haven't gotten to that one yet. That one's only.
I mean, I don't think the Chargers can really get out of this 5 spot now. I don't know if this game matters anymore to them because, well, now they're 10-6, both them and the Ravens. What happens if the Chargers lose next week? So the Chargers lose to the Broncos, and then they would drop. No matter what, they're going to drop to 6. So, I mean, I actually think this game is important for the Chargers because then they go to Jacksonville or Tennessee instead of going to Baltimore or Cincinnati.
Right. So it matters to the point where they have something to play for, and they're only a 3-point favorite on the road, or 3.5.
The
juice 3.
Does it feel different to you with the Chargers this year?
In what way?
Like I have this expectation in my head that the Chargers are just going to find a way to blow certain games. And now it feels like they're just good. Like they figured it out.
Is my Herbert MVP bet live?
I don't think it is. No. However, like it feels, and maybe I'm just like, it's in my head and there's nothing to it. Like everybody's got these feels for Green Bay right now. I have these feels for the Chargers.
They have not blown the spots that you would expect them to blow. They're not charging. They're not charging. I think that's a completely fair assessment. And there is reason to be optimistic on this team.
I know they haven't won anything yet, but I think a lot of people probably owe Brandon Staley a pretty big apology because, I mean, he's done a good job, I would say, this year. And maybe he hasn't been as aggressive as last season, and maybe the analytics crowd has kind of fallen out of favor with him. But the injuries that they've struggled through this year to get to where they're at now, possibility of finishing the year 11-6, I think that's a job well done, personally.
They got Bosa back this week. Their offense has been clicking. They've had like you said, they've had a lot of injuries. I think, unfortunately, their margin of victory is in the Vikings kind of territory where it's very thin.
Yep.
For the record, but I like this Charger team much more than I like that Viking team.
So I think the game where Herbert played with broken ribs and they got smoked by the Jags really screws around with their point differential this year. They lost that game 38-10. Aside from that, they lost another game to the Seahawks 37-23. That was still, that was a home game. There was more Seahawks fans there than Chargers fans. Aside from that, highly competitive. And now like winning games that you typically would just expect them to lose.
Yeah, so they lost a close game versus KC week 2. Lost to Seattle, like you said. They played San Francisco, tight game. 2 games they lost to KC, field goal. The Raiders loss wasn't a good one, but they beat the Dolphins. They beat Titans. They're just winning some of these close games, I guess. What's the best win that they have?
That's a good question.
I guess the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Dolphins game, that was like 3 weeks ago, no?
Yeah, that was not. So Tua did play that game in its entirety.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a big total. That was 54.5.
Like,
and they played good teams tight.
Right. Like, in my opinion, nobody wants to play the Chargers in the playoffs. Like you'd really want to dodge that team in the first round. And in fact, like what's the like if it ends up being Jacksonville Chargers, what's the line in that game?
In Jacksonville?
Yeah.
It would probably be
pick 'em. Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Depends how much of a home field I guess you give Jacksonville in a playoff spot too. I have it a pick.
Yeah. Like that would like give me that game. Like give me that game. Lawrence against Herbert. Give me that game.
Oh, and then we get to hear how it's a trap line because, Jacksonville smoked the Chargers earlier in the year. Oh, I can't wait. Yes, please. Give me that game.
Give me that game. Give me Bengals, Ravens part 3. Give me Bills, Dolphins part 3. Let's will that to fruition. That's what I want for the first round of the playoffs.
That's not a bad AFC card. That's pretty good.
I'm already going to have to sit through Vikings and Giants.
If Tua can't play, though, I want the Steelers.
Agreed. If Tua can't play, I want the Steelers. For those of you who are in the chat right now, we've got about 100 in here at the moment. Drop your favorite play for week 18 against the spread right now. Of all the lines that are widely available right now, favorite play against the spread if you could only bet one game next week. I'm very curious as to what the chat thinks on that. And while you guys think that over and drop those plays in here, any other games that we did not cover yet that are worth covering? Texans and Colts. They're playing it next week. Texans and Colts is being played. Nick Foles got destroyed today, so I think it's going to be an Ellinger game.
It's a game you can bet on.
It's a game you can bet on. Plain and simple. Probably will have the lowest betting handle of any game in the NFL this season, if I had to guess. All right. We got one
more. I'm starting to see some Steelers Browns numbers some places.
Okay. Steelers Browns is popping up. Well, what are you seeing right now?
DraftKings -2, FanDuel -3, 105.
There we go. Got it up. Betstamp pulled them in fairly quickly. So this is an interesting matchup. By the way, Deshaun Watson today in the second half looked great. First half stunk, horrible. Second half, great. I love the Steelers, but you see the limitations with their offense, right? Like they don't score a lot of touchdowns. It's tough to bet them in any situation where they're -3 and they need to win by 4.
Fair. That's fair. They just play such a conservative style of offense. Pickett's,
he's fine.
Yeah.
Matt Canada does him no favors. Let's put it that way. He's fine.
Yeah, I would say he's fine. So this game's in Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
I had
Pittsburgh at home.
2 is probably the right number, I think.
I'm going to pull all of these in. So Titans, we got Titans 7, Jets 3.5 at Miami. Minnesota -1, Jets 3.5, Buffalo -7.
There we go, Scott.
Rams +6.5, Giants +14, Jets 3.5. I doubt Tua will play. Lions 4.5, Chargers -3, Titans +7. So a lot of love for the Titans already. Seattle -6.5. Rams are terrible. Fair enough. That's the contrarian. Tampa 7.5, Jets 3, Tampa 7.5. So we got a pretty decent consensus of what people like next week, which is Tampa in a meaningless game, but getting over a touchdown against Desmond Ridder. We have a little bit of Bills laying the points, Giants getting 14, Jets getting the points against probably Skylar Thompson. Had someone say that they like the Chargers. Lots of Titans, a few Lions in there as well, and then a mixed bag on Rams and Seahawks. Pretty interesting.
No Panthers, no Raiders that we saw. I think we saw somebody with the Lions at 4.5. We saw that.
Yeah, we saw one Lions.
No Cardinals or Niners on either side of that game. No Cowboys or Commanders on either side of that game.
Nope.
Interesting.
Someone said Philly first half -7. I got to call you out on that because I don't see -7s on the board. I mean, that's not to say you didn't bet it, but I currently see 7.5 best price in market for the first half there. It's not going to be an exact, -14 to -7 for the game line there. I don't hate the first half look. I'm more likely to play that than I am the full game.
Yeah.
You could do the old Galaxy brainer. Hear me out. Philly -7.5 first half. Giants +14 full game.
Can I tease the total too?
That's a joke, by the way, people. Yeah, it brings me back to somebody who I won't mention who used to tweet MLB picks, and they used to take one team in the first 5 innings and the other team for the full game. And I'm like, there's no way you actually have an edge on both of these. Like, even if one of the bullpens is really bad, you do not have an edge on this. Please, you do not. All right. I think that's going to do it for us.
Sorry we didn't talk about totals. I don't know how we could.
Well, how am I going to handicap totals for next week? I mean, listen, here's what I will say. This is a general piece of advice to everyone out there. Week 18, I know people work day jobs. I know people, you have families, you have stuff to do and whatever, but it's very news driven, right? And you can bet the side and you can bet the total on a news play. So just remember that, right? If a team says they're sitting all their players, the other team should draw action. So should the under in most of those cases, because the downgrade at quarterback is what matters the most. So just remember that stuff. React to news as best you can. But if you're reacting to news like hours after the fact, probably not a great idea.
It's too late.
Exactly. I will ask. I'm here for the Houston Indy preview. Did I miss it? That'll be a barn burner. Imagine how much would somebody have to pay you next week to not watch Red Zone at 1:00, but to watch the full Colts Texans game.
At least 4 figures. Like,
oh, I was going to say at least $5,000. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. To give up the final Sunday to sit through that entire game and not know anything else other than like the updates that chime in during the game. Well, Jim, like it's always Bill Cowher, like Devontae Adams having a great game. And then like there's the commentary, right? Najee Harris breaks one off. And like it's the lamest, those updates.
Chances are I'd rather want to listen to it in Spanish too, because I don't even know what announce team they put on that game.
That it'll be interesting next week because they have to work in like all the announced teams, right? So you might get like an Aqib Talib game, which I would really enjoy if he was able to. Do you want to pay me to do it? That's pretty funny. No, I'm not offering to pay anyone to do that because I can't prove it for one. But yeah, no, don't want to do that. Reminder, everyone out there, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. You'll get notified for all the NFL content we put out here on the Forward Progress channel. If you do enjoy the content that we put out there, hit that like button before you take off tonight. Goes a long way for us to continue producing content, helps with the Google algorithm, helps more people, well, it is the same thing. Google, YouTube, same shit. Helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps people find our content. So please make sure you smash that like button before this is done. And one more favor, let someone anyone in your life, about the Hammer Betting Network or the Forward Progress channel. You can visit us at hammer.bet at any single time, see all the content that we produce, and like I said, all the NFL content here on Forward Progress. But please just let people know.
Don't be afraid to interact with the Forward Progress Twitter page either. I mean, throw comments, throw your bets up there, like whatever you guys are playing. Like, especially this last week of the season, this could be a lot of fun. So throw your stuff out there.
Scheduling update. We will do the show next week. So Clive and myself are going to do a Forward Progress next week. It will be our last one of the season, though. So we will recap week 18. We'll look ahead to the opening lines of the playoffs. I mean, we won't know the times of the games. I have to think this through a little bit more. I really want to do a show next week. Maybe we'll save it for Monday. We will do a show next week. We will do a show next week, breaking down the first round of the NFL playoffs. Also, I do plan to do some live streams during the playoffs as well. More information coming on that. I will definitely announce it publicly through the Hammer HQ Twitter, but no playoff Forward Progress because it's a little bit challenging to do so for many different reasons. I don't know. Maybe if there's enough demand, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody really wants to see it, it'll be obviously a shorter show. But I mean, if you guys want to hear recaps and some previews, I guess.
Part of the real reason is that I get tanked during the playoffs usually.
I think we'll get more viewers.
These standalone games are a little bit more challenging, but the problem is we would have to switch it to Monday night for the first week because there's a Monday night football game. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out. No guarantees. We will try. But thank you, everyone.
Send Rob some eggnog. Just get him some alcohol. Like, he'll do it.
I'll do it. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. This has been Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting Network. Once again, remember to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, tell one of your friends, family, whoever it is, just tell someone about the Hammer Betting Network. We will see you next week. Peace out, everyone.
Thanks all.